was listening a bit to the record again last night because I just couldn't listen to it straight after it was made for months.
Yeah.
And then I was sort of re-listening to it a bit, and I was like, oh yes, after like all of this, like lead up, this is the thing that will exist,
Yeah.
you know, and you just kind of forget, you know.
With all the noise around it.
Yeah,
You
with
forget,
all the noise, you just forget that this is the thing that you made, and this is the thing that goes into the world, and you know, the rest of it maybe won't be around in a couple of years.
It's like there's always all this noise around how you market it and you know which platform and I'm like, you know, in the end it's about that thing. It's about that thing.
I forgot I made a record. I did. I forgot because I was like, okay, there's like caption approvals and da-da-da, and people are talking about aspect ratios and da-da-da, and I'm like, okay, you're like, just because of the way that records are rolled out now in terms of a lot of it being put on the artists themselves, you know, and on like their platform and da-da-da, and also being a particularly obsessive person.
Yes.
I think if I was someone who I was like, just put anything up out there, I don't need to know. I'm like, no, I need to know. I need like emoji approval.
Yeah.
So I think if I was less obsessive and less perfectionistic, I wouldn't find like the current like way that the rollouts happen as hard. But I just feel like I've never been so aware of like the rollout process itself.
Yeah.
Because everything is like, okay, this is a clip that's going up and we need your approval and we need a caption for this and and I forgot that there was even an album. It's like, oh, there's a record. Okay, that's actually the thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of people who put up all that stuff and there really isn't anything behind it. So at least you have something behind it.
Well, I try and like, I was like, okay, if I'm going to have to use these platforms, I want everything to be world building, everything to be story, everything to be done with complete intention.
Yeah.
I think, and that's this thing, like, I'm really happy to use social platforms if I feel like I can create a story with them, basically. But that takes so much, like, thought. It's like, it takes so much thought and analyzing. And at some point, I just forgot that there was even, like, an album.
Yeah,
but
what brought you here in the first place, right? As you say on your own album, here you are, your troubled hero, back for season 6.
There's another vague humiliations of fame. And as I'm doing promo at that line, I just think about it all the time. I'm like, the vague humiliations of fame.
Yes.
But yeah, I was going to call the album Season 6.
You were?
Yeah. I was going to call the album Season 6 when it was first, but this was way back, you know, really, it was like the first thing I thought of if I was going to make a 6th album. I was like, oh, I should call it Season 6. And each title should be like as if it was a television series.
Yes.
But then some other stuff happened to me and I was like, okay, some bigger life stuff is happening than just me. Because all you're doing really when you're on tour is like watching television or reading books or whatever. So, and then actually like some big life stuff happened that kind of took me away from this. But I still included it in a song.
Everything gets used somewhere.
Yeah.
Ultimately. I always get this sense when you come back with a record that we're sort of tapping back into this ongoing battle you're having.
I know.
That as your life changes, you look at it from some other perspective. But it's in many ways it's part of the same fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there is this, especially the last 2 records, I think just because of the age I am as well, you know, like the age I am, like what you're going to kind of use your body in service of, like what, what it used to be when you're 20s, 3 years of touring means nothing, you know, and then when you get into your 30s, that's like, okay, that's still taking me like further away from having a family. It's taking me further away from like other things I might want.
Yeah.
So I think the last 2 records have really been wrestling with those questions.
Yes.
And this one just got even more angry. The last one was like a question and like a day, and this one is just a furious scream.
At its heart, what's that anger about?
I think the anger is sort of the sort of like frustration at feeling the limitations of my body, the limitations of time, like the limitations of my industry that is in some ways not really built for me, and honestly like couldn't really imagine something like me, you know, like the lack of support and that I'm having to sacrifice something that potentially like I wish I didn't have to, you know, to keep going, and the fury at that.
Is there a compulsion for you to make a new record? Is it something you have to do? And I know this record is different, but I mean generally.
In general, like once I have the title, I have to make it. It's very like if there's just like a sort of like free floating idea, like season 6, it didn't feel, it was like that was like a fun idea.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel solid. That would have been a kind of concept album about like an album that was like based on like 90s gothic television shows. It would still be kind of a good record, I think, but it wasn't this record. I think when the title Everybody Scream, like that happened with Dance Fever. I didn't think I was going to make a record. The Highest Hope tour ended and this whole idea and concept for Dance Fever just like arrived. And then as soon as I had the title Everybody Scream, it's like, oh no, like now you've got me. Now I have to make this record because Florence and the Machine, Everybody Scream is such a good title. So it just kind of like, once the idea lands, you are compelled to make it. If it's free, if there's like just free floating things, like I don't feel it. And then as soon as the idea is kind of brought to you, it's almost like
it has some power over you.
It's your duty to make it then at that point.
You've talked about the brutality of ambition.
Yeah.
Which is such an interesting phrase.
Yeah, I think especially on a song like One of the Greats, I was thinking about like greatness itself, and I mean what I put my body through, and honestly sometimes my mind through, is brutal at some points to get myself to a level of performance that I'm satisfied with.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I've literally like broken myself up on the stage multiple times.
Yeah.
And there is a sort of shutting off of the human, honestly, to like do what you do. There is a kind of like almost like a violence in like rejecting your own humanity sometimes to just kind of like push yourself forward. Yeah. And again, it's like, you know, I guess if you're choosing, you know, peace of mind or a great song, you're always going to choose a great song. You know, it's like, oh, is this someone's going to be pissed off about that. It's going to hurt someone. Am I going to do it? I'm going to do it. You know, like there is a brutality to it. There is to be in service to the work, you often have to be brutal.
Yes. So what is the conversation in your head like when you get to the point that you know there's an album coming at you and you're wrestling with these choices?
This one was different because I actually was, I was actually trying to choose a different path. So after Dance Fever, I was like, I think I'm going to try and have a family and take a break. Yeah. And then obviously that went like quite like badly wrong. Yeah. And I had ended up having a near-death experience on stage and like, you know, emergency surgery through, you know, complications with the pregnancy. And then I felt it sort of wasn't like a compulsion. It was more just like, I don't even really remember starting this record. You know, I just went almost straight from that event into the studio as a way of coping, I think, and as a way of trying to piece myself back together. But like, it was different this time, you know, there was an urgency to it. Yeah. And partly because I had someone say to me, like, there is an idea that like you need to fix it by trying again really quickly, you know, by trying again to have a family, that will fix it, that will like heal. Yeah. And they said like the best piece of advice I can give you is don't try again until you feel like yourself. And I think for me, the place that I understand myself in the world and where I could kind of understand what had happened to me was the studio, you know, of going back in. But, you know, it was like, it's a bit foggy the first 6 months of making that record. Yeah. And then at the end of it, I was like, oh my God, I have a record. And now I'm going to have to talk about this. You know, I was like, why have I done this to myself again? Because like, what do you mean? Why am I always making these records about incredibly hard things I don't want to talk about? What's wrong with me?
Well, you said you just listened to it again. What did you think when you heard it?
I was so happy with how much like because I think, you know, you could have made a sad record and actually it has so much pace and so much fury and so much energy to it. And I think that's what I really needed. I needed a sense of feeling in control of my body again, and I get that a lot through performance and through movement. And I think the imagination is this incredible form of escape. You know, I was pinned. I was like, I couldn't move. You know, things were happening to my body that I had no control over. And then it's sort of like through creating imaginary landscapes, you can be free again. You know?
Yes.
You can almost like go through a portal to another place where, you know, you're not confined by the body.
I'm so interested in this process that you go through when you're sort of wrestling with the idea that this force is going to make you create a record. And as I say, I know this album is different because you talk about the sort of fight you have inside yourself about that moment, but then you also talk about the peace you find performing on stage.
Yeah.
And that seems like a sort of very interesting mountain you cross every time you do it.
Well, the performance isn't the work. Do you know what I mean? Like everything else, this is, I love you, obviously. But like the kind of discussing the album and like, kind of like turning yourself inside out, like that's the work. And the performance still feels like a place of total freedom.
Yes.
You know, it's weird. You get into this job to be free. And actually the bigger you get, the less free you are, which is a strange thing that happens. It's like I got into performing to feel completely free, to not have expectations. And actually it became so big that actually you become confined again.
Yeah.
But this stepping on the stage, I am still free.
Yes.
It almost becomes a more precious space the bigger you get. You know, because if you become recognizable, that's still a slightly way of being unfree in the world.
Oh, sure.
You know, you're kind of always holding yourself, trying to hold yourself right, trying to, you know, and like everyone has cameras now. And honestly, like no one's ever filming me, but I swear I'm always ducking out of like other people filming their own content. I'm always like, oh, okay, like avoid, this person's filming something, you know, that's like just me kind of like hiding from camera phones all day.
Yeah.
So there is, but I feel like the stage remained that place of breaking free of constraints.
Yes.
I think.
So you look forward to that.
I do. It's like it definitely still feels like a kind of pressure, I think. But then as soon as I'm up there and if I can lock into that place of being completely present, it's a very kind of transcendent thing for me, I think.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the different aspects of this process, which, I mean, the creative part of it, which is the writing of the lyrics, the adding the music, then ultimately taking it on tour and performing. What part of that is the most thrilling for you?
I love being in the studio where no one can see me.
Do you?
Yes, I love being like in the studio and hidden. And actually, like the nicest part of like later fame is that less and less people recognize me, and it makes me so happy. I'm like, oh my God, they have no idea who I am. That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
So I love being in the studio, hidden from sight. I think having to explain the record, I'm always worried I'm not doing it justice because I do feel like songs are kind of like gifts from something other than me. And then when I have to use my like stupid human words to describe them, I'm always worried I'm like not describing them properly.
When you say you feel like they're gifts, how do you mean that?
Well, that you kind of have to channel something, I think, sometimes, or sometimes a song will just arrive and it feels like it came from another place.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like I'm just like doing such a bad job of describing it.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite bits is definitely like being in the studio in this kind of, there's also this precious moment when the songs are just yours, you know, and you can kind of like, you just live in that bubble of imagination with them.
Yeah.
And then actually the signing off of the record is really hard.
Is it?
Because that's when all the doubts and all the feelings of like not good enough, not perfect, didn't get it right. That's when they all come in for a couple of months.
Yeah.
I think it was really important for me to kind of say what I went through just because it's on stage, because it's such a like shadowy and silent experience, but that so many women go through.
Yes.
So it felt really important to talk about it. I did think I would feel like more of an understanding or a catharsis, and that hasn't actually come yet, you
Yeah.
know? But I think where that comes often for me is when you're just talking about the record, or there isn't that like emotional feedback. And I think where that comes and you understand the songs or like why you wrote them is seeing it, people sing it back to you.
Right.
You know, when you're in that room and you can feel that you're all connected.
Yes.
I think that's also one of my favorite bits.
Yeah.
But the sort of like analyzing of the record or discussing it, like I always feel like I'm not kind of like explaining things. Like,
Not doing it justice?
I'm not doing it justice, you know, this huge
Yeah.
thing. I'm just like, I'm not doing it justice.
Yeah. Once you let go of it, it's kind of up to people to make of it.
Well, that's what I mean as well. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to explain songs because also people, they have the most amazing theories about what the song's about. They're sometimes way smarter than me. I'm like, oh, I just did that because it rhymed. And they have these huge theories about why. I'm like, it just rhymed, rhyme zone.
It's true. You get in the spot and you just need to get out.
That's it. I'm just like, what rhymes?
I do think it's really important that you've been talking about what you went through on stage.
Yeah. You know, I had like, you know, a particularly sort of brutal experience, you know, that required emergency surgery, and then I was back on stage 10 days later.
Yes.
You know, and luckily we only had 2 shows left, and there was kind of no doubt in my mind that I would do them. There was a sense that like something had been taken from me, and I actually didn't want like these last 2 shows to be taken from me as well. But you know, there's always a moment where you don't know if an album is going to be finished. You can't find the right producer, you can't find the time. Like we had all that stuff happen.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of this year, we didn't really know if the record would be made. And there was a sense that like these songs, I don't think I would put them out beyond this moment. You know, there was like, I think I would have processed it differently. My life would have changed. Like maybe I would have started trying again. Maybe I wouldn't want to deal with this later.
Yeah.
And then I just felt so much sadness. I was like, this silent scream that like so many women go through, this shadowy thing, that this record also might never come out, you know, that this like, this would also kind of go unacknowledged. That was sort of really heartbreaking to me. And then like, luckily we did. Because I was like, oh, do I want to put myself through the emotion of what talking about this is? Yeah, I was also considering that. I was like, okay, this is going to be rough.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be rough to talk about.
Has it been rough?
I thought it would bring me more like understanding, and it hasn't yet. But I think what this process is for someone out there who's gone through a similar experience, this bit is for them. You know, I think the bit for me is going to come later. Yeah. But this is for them. And I also wanted this album to not just be a scream, but to just feel like I was wrapping my arms around anyone that this had happened to, and just be like, I'm with you. I know neither of us want to be here, but I'm with you and you're not alone. Yeah. You know? That's big because it just doesn't get talked about enough. Yeah, and there was like this moment when we didn't know, to me, these songs could only exist in this moment. And if I was going to move on and do another album, this would just be a whole album that also like wasn't, you know, discussed. And that felt, considering what it was about, like really sad. I did want to ask you, on stage that night, were you at all aware of the physical danger you were in? I was in pain. Yeah. Also, this was a kind of new experience for me. I'd never experienced something like this. So, and I had also, you know, I'd been told that an ectopic pregnancy was rare. Yeah. And if I probably wouldn't be able to perform at the capacity that I was if I was experiencing one, because they're so painful. Yeah. But weirdly, like I have performed through a lot of incredibly painful things. I've broken my foot on stage and I've kept running, you know, like I am a very sensitive person, but do have a kind of, when it comes to performance, a sort of like an enormous physical strength. And actually, like I was in pain, but when I stepped on the stage, it kind of like, you know, it all went away. Yeah. And weirdly, it was like a really amazing show in the end. Yeah. And so I think I've always had a sense that someone kind of something is carrying me through performance, you know, and I just surrender to that, and it does carry me through. Yeah. I didn't think I was in danger at that point.
It was your doctor who insisted you get a scan.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to finish out the tour.
Yeah.
I was just like, I just got through that performance. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep going, And yes, she was like, no, you need to come in, And then it was straight to surgery. 48 hours later, I don't know. Basically, I would have tried to get on the plane to go. I think we were booked to play Pukkelpop in Amsterdam, and they were like, you would have been off on a stretcher or worse, So, but it was this sense of like, we're coming to the end of the tour. I can get through this. I'm fine. And I mean, thank God for my doctor, really.
Yeah. Was there a point where it sort of sank in that like, I was almost out of here?
No, I feel like I should be more wise now, and I'm just not. I'm like, and they're like, oh, I like had this life and death experience, and now I feel like I really like don't sweat the small stuff, and I'm like, no, that's not like I'm sweating all the small stuff. Like I feel like a bit. What it did give me, I think, was a sense of toughness in the work that I wanted to create. With a sense of like. It did, I think, mean I made a very uncompromising record.
Yes.
But for such an anxious person where something really terrible was happening to me, I was like, I'm going to be fine. I think, honestly, it just came at the time when I was relieved we were getting to the end of the tour.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, this is going to be fine. I'm going to make this through.
Yeah.
I was performing at such a level that, like, no one thought I was that sick. You know what I mean? There was just like, there's no way that you'd be able to do that if this was happening to you. So I was just like, well, I can still perform, so obviously I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I think the performance itself is a kind of otherworldly energy that you kind of can't trust sometimes. Like,
well, but I mean, from what you've described to me over the years, you've had that. I mean, I remember when we were talking about you getting sober, and you talked about how you used to go out every night for hours. Now people couldn't believe that you had the endurance.
Yes, no, a tank, like a little tank. Like I was, and there were two like 6-foot men in my band, like huge guys, and I would drink them under the table and just keep going and play the show. I never missed the show. So for someone who is emotionally, I think, very sort of, I can be very like fragile at times. My physical, or it's some way of processing pain that's physical pain. So I think that maybe does come from finding emotional pain harder than physical pain.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's like the things that I can push my body through can sometimes be really extreme.
It's so interesting how you can seem to easily conquer one and not the other. But because you're incredibly eloquent about the emotional ups and downs you go through. So it's like you have an amazing emotional intelligence. You can identify them. You can describe them.
Self-awareness gets you nowhere. doesn't fix it. You just know that it's happening. It doesn't make it better.
Well, sometimes it feels better if you at least understand what's happening.
I know, but it doesn't. I understand what's happening. It doesn't stop.
Yes. That's very true. When we talked around Dance Fever, and you described this sort of, touring versus a family life, I didn't get the sense you'd necessarily resolved that question at that point, but clearly afterwards you'd made a choice.
When you finish a tour, you get this rush of energy to like make something again.
Yeah.
And either that was like an album, or I was going to try starting a family. And after Dance Fever, that's kind of I did go into it with a lot of like feelings of like hope, really, like hope and excitement, and why I went back to making work is like I do not want this to overtake my identity. The fact that this went wrong, I wanted to go back to a place where I felt strong. And I think you can kind of lose your mind thinking that the only thing that will give your life meaning or purpose is kind of motherhood, and you need to do everything that you can to get there. And I was like, no, there are so many other aspects of my life that bring me meaning and purpose. And if that happens for me one day, that's amazing. But also I kind of wanted to go to the place which brings me so much meaning in a different way.
So how would you describe where you are now?
Oh my God, I have no idea. How am I?
You don't need to have an idea.
How am I now? I'm at the phase where I forget. You make an album and then you just forget you have to do all this stuff. I was just like, what do you mean? Why? And I'm at the phase where I forget that you it's, I just forget that I have to do this, and um, I think, and I forget I have to go on a tour. So, there was like, you live in, I think when something that happens to you, you live in two parallel universes, and there's one where it didn't happen, and you had a totally different life. And sometimes I am in this life, even when things are going well, and wondering what that other life looked like, and that does, like, as the sort of stresses of the album, like the vague humiliations of fame line, as they build up, there is some kind of like, oh, what if what had happened to me hadn't happened to me? What would my life look like then?
Right.
So there is a sort of like bittersweet feeling to it.
You said something in one of the conversations about when you made the record with Taylor and you performed with her. I think you said you learned something when you were performing with her, or you saw something that you maybe not seen before.
Oh, I was just like, performing in a stadium is amazing. I was like, performing in a stadium is so fun.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I would have to change so much of my like work ethic and the way that I to get here. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, this is incredible. I would really have to like change my like level of output if I was to actually want to get to stadiums. But it was one of the most amazing experiences.
What was special about it for you?
Honestly, just like the atmosphere inside of there was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. It was like no other experience.
What did you feel?
Just like the electricity, the like passion of her fan base. If you have to go and experience it in person, it's something else. Like, it was really beautiful.
You said that when you were originally thinking about this album, you thought of structuring it in the terms of TV episodes.
Yeah. Which I didn't in the end.
You're a huge Buffy fan.
Well, that's why I was going to call the album Season 6, because of Season 6 of Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. I was kind of comfort watching, as I was wrapping up Dance Fever or having to send in mixes, I kind of went back to watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a sort of another coping mechanism.
What do you get out of Buffy?
Really, the fact that she has these like superpowers, but she just wants to have a normal life.
Yes.
Do you know, like, I'm like, I get this. I understand this. I understand this. That sense of like, she has to do these crazy, like, superhuman feats.
Yeah.
And then all the time she just wants to be like a normal high school girl. I'm like, I kind of really understand that.
Yeah. That's the battle, isn't it?
Yeah. But then she's literally battling.
Yeah.
And she's in life and death situations.
Yeah.
And then having to come back and like be a superhero.
Yeah. One last lyric I wanted to ask you about in Music by Men. The line, "Let me put out a record and not have it ruin my life." Does it ruin your life every time?
There's always like something. There's always something that happens on every record that, I guess it's not life ruining, but it's always a cost to your personal life. Even just being away, even just like being a public person.
Yeah.
Even like putting your personal life out there, it affects the people in your life. Like, there's always some sacrifice of your personal life, whether that's just time or there's always a tax on your personal life.
But by the same token, I mean, it sort of feels like you couldn't not do it.
But you always choose the song, you know? You always choose the song, and so...
Why do you always choose the song?
Because it's sort of like, it's the sacrifice to you, but it's the kind of the gift to everyone else. Yeah. Like, you kind of... Yeah. It just makes for better art, I think. Like, it makes for better work.
Yeah.
And if someone gives something to me in a song, I'm so grateful for them. It's about like commitment, I guess. It's like a dedication to the work. It's like you kind of intimate with the world, and it affects your intimacy with those closest to you, basically. Yes. And that's the kind of like deal you're making at that point.
But you have to make that deal if you're going to make art.
On some level, like, it only works really if it costs you something.
Really?
Or if it makes you feel weird. It's probably a really good song. You're like, oh, this makes me feel weird.
Is that your barometer? It's sort of goes into the weird.
Oh, I don't want to put this out. And then it's everyone's favorite song.
I
Like
know.
I don't send songs sometimes because I'm like, they're gonna love this one and this one's gonna make my life a nightmare. And if I play it to people, they're like, you need to put this one on the record. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to do some explaining.
Yeah.
Like, I think like I'm always gonna want to make work, but I'm also interested in changing. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like letting go of control on some level,
Mm-hmm.
and like it would be interesting to me almost how that would change my work, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
motherhood.
Sure.
You know, I have this feeling like I don't want to stay the same forever. You know, I don't want to try and like preserve myself in amber as this particular version of me, that to
Yeah.
like accept change and
Yeah.
accept like becoming a different person might be really interesting creatively.
Yeah.
I'm interested in like what those changes might bring to me
Yeah.
creatively, because you also like, I think you have to allow yourself to change. Otherwise, also you're always going to be writing about the same stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Plenty of painters have basically painted the same thing.
That's true, and I do think it is expected of women often to be like reinventing themselves all the time and to
Yeah.
not have like. And I think I actually do have themes that I just really enjoy going back to.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like more expected of women to be like reinventing or like
Yeah.
like make it new, make it more interesting from us. And I
Yeah.
actually kind of love it when people are exploring the same themes over and over again.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'd slightly like, I've sort of accepted now the kind of music I make and the albums I make, and now I'm just spending time perfecting them. Do you, like,
Yes.
I do think in the early phases of my career, I was like, slightly rejecting myself at some points and
Yeah.
being like, okay, I'm not like that huge orchestral thing, I'm this, or
Yeah.
and you do that because, you know, you're so pedestalized as a young woman and then torn down, and like you
Yeah.
start to feel the kind of shame a little bit about
Yeah.
how you express yourself. So you feel like you have to like pivot away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't really feel that way anymore. I do
Right.
feel like now I'm in a phase where I'm just kind of refining what it is.
Yes.
And that does actually feel really good.
Yeah. You've used that word a number of times in conversations you've had recently, shame.
Yeah.
What's the source of that shame?
I don't know, just general self-loathing I've had forever. It was there before I was
Yeah.
famous. Just like a sense of like not good enough, like not feeling quite right in myself,
Right.
I think. So it's kind of like, and then you know, you thrust yourself into music, and because you want to feel good about yourself, it's not the place to find that. No, don't do it. You're looking in the wrong place.
So many people love your music. You must have gotten something back.
No, it's much better now. I think like it's much better, and I think I look for validation in it less. You know, like
Yeah.
it has much more become about the work and
Yeah.
less about what people think about me, the person, which I think is also getting older and being in a later phase of my career,
Mm-hmm.
which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
I don't feel it so much, but I think this album almost deals with sometimes processing how it felt, if you know what I mean. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to now look back on it
Yeah.
in those periods where I felt a lot of shame about like how big my feelings were or my expression was or how big my music was, and
Yeah.
I can look back on it now and be like, oh, that wasn't about me, you know.
Yeah.
And this album is almost kind of like realizing that and sort of and embracing the bigness and
Yes.
sort of like
Yes.
releasing from that shame a bit.
I hope so, because I think that's what everybody loved about you to start with.
Yeah, so I think I feel I feel free from it in some levels.
Yeah.
You know, I feel free from trying to please people or trying to be anything other than what I am.
In your mind, what's success in a song?
Um,
Or do you even think in those terms?
It feels incredibly successful when you're making it. As soon as you have to sign it off, you feel incredibly unsuccessful.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a trajectory where like, this is the most amazing song anyone has ever written. This is terrible. Why would you ever put this out? And then like, oh no, I think this is good. That's where it goes. Like it goes all over the place. Success, I think, is where I feel like it takes over my whole body and I'm kind of released from something in
Yes,
it, you know?
okay.
And where the picture is really clear.
Yeah.
Like the picture of where you are in space is really clear. It is almost like, I guess, you're like creating a landscape, and if that landscape's really clear, I feel like that's successful.